Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live. Yes, all the way live from Black World Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Yo, thank you so much for tuning in. Indiana's own Dana Black, Turn Left. This is the new format. It is no longer a live format because, honestly, I love my life at Act Blue, and therefore it's not always possible for me to do the live shows, but it is also still very important to me that I continue to bring you the candidates who are running for office. You need to know who is going to be sitting on your school board, who is sitting on your county commissioner, and y'all know my passion always lies in the state house, so I am always looking to get as many state house candidates running for office. So first up in the new format is my good friend Ross Thomas, who is running for Indiana Senate District 41. Ross, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Dana. Always good to talk to you.
Man, listen, you are like one of the most resilient humans I have ever met. Tell the people who you are and where you come from, but in that, why do you keep showing up and putting your name on the ballot?
Well, I'm the county chairman in Bartholomew County. So I am sometimes the candidate of last resort because it's my job to put someone on the ballot. I ran for state senate once before as a real novice back in 2018 when I was just kind of recruited out of the blue. Wasn't even involved in local politics up until that point. Had been involved in more national politics. Had actually worked on President Obama's campaign here in Indiana, which was a great experience for me. And being a candidate then, I got more involved in local politics and eventually became the county chairman. Look, I think we have a hard time sometimes getting people to step up to run in some of these tough districts. And I'm certainly somebody who's willing to step up. And certainly in this race is one that I think is a little different than what we've seen before because we feel like we're in a really competitive race this time, running against Michelle Davis, who ran a very ugly, very well-funded primary to one of those candidates that was ousted essentially by the Trump endorsement, the revenge tour, I believe they call it. And so they've been left with a really radical candidate who knocked out a more moderate Republican. And I think there's plenty of people in this district that are not looking for a more radical candidate. They're looking for someone that's actually going to try to improve their quality of life. So, that's the main reason that I'm running is that I think this district, which is Columbus, where I live, and Franklin in Johnson County and the surrounding areas, look, folks don't want more division. They don't want more privatization. They don't want more data centers.
Right.
They want a responsible government that is going to run efficiently, but is also going to provide the services that we all need to have an improved quality of life, right? We know that Indiana ranks near the bottom, baby, in so many categories.
Yeah, especially quality of life categories.
Quality of life, we sometimes rank last. Everything from child mortality, infant mortality, to water quality, to teacher pay. You can go down the list. In every sector, we are at a race to the bottom, and that comes from 20 years of Republican malfeasance, where they have run our state into the ground. So it was time for people to stand up, and hopefully I'm one of those people.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate that. And I love that fire in your belly because, like you said, it is hard to recruit people to run for office because they think they got to have these special qualifications. And I keep reminding people there's an orange guy in the White House. You don't have to have any special qualifications. But more importantly, they are afraid to be scrutinized. You're an attorney, right? You serve as an officer of the court. How have you been able to avoid some of that nastiness when it comes, because you've been on the ballot before. How have you been able to avoid a lot of that other than the fact that you're an officer of the court?
Well, look, I mean, we'll see this time. I hope we're not in a negative, ugly campaign, but I mean, some things that are happening in our state are ugly. So if it means calling out, idiotic policy, we have to do that. And, that can be called negative. But what we're really talking about is, again, just a lot of policies that make no sense. We've seen that we've been doing it here for years with bad results. We see in other states that follow a similar path what the bad results are. And frankly, we see in other places where other approaches are taken, where the quality of life is much, much better. So, yes, I am an attorney. I've been practicing law for 31 years in Indiana. I grew up on a farm down in Jennings County, and I went to public schools there, went to college at Tulane University in New Orleans on an academic scholarship, was lucky to get, and came back to Indiana, went to law school at what was then called IU Indianapolis, and now called the McKinney School of Law, and have been practicing law here ever since. Met my wife shortly after law school. I've been married 25 years and have 3 kids as well. So I've been a Columbus guy for more than 20 years. And so I really love this community and love this area. And, Columbus is kind of a unique place.
Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
Well, so, Columbus is the home of Cummins Engine Company. And that has always been sort of the straw that stirs the drink around here. And if you go back long enough, when Cummins was an upstart company, a lot of people here invested in it, and a lot of people made some money. And so it's always been a little town that had a few more resources than some other places. And we were lucky, it was before my time, but J.I. Miller, who was the head of Cummins, the chairman of Cummins, was a really forward-thinking guy. He was pro-civil rights. He was a really good guy by all accounts. And he helped Cummins invest in Columbus. And, we hear about architecture. He helped that go forward. So we have a lot of amazing architecture here that J.I. Miller and Cummins helped to facilitate. But we also have public works and a real investment in our community back when the city was growing. And we've tried to keep that. Obviously, we've had plenty of Republicans come and go who have tried to slash what we do here and, to try to make us a little more like North Vernon, where I grew up, and a little less like, a progressive city. But they failed for the most part. And right. Columbus is still a progressive city. And, we want to build on that. Yeah. And what we're doing now is just tearing those things down, by not giving our communities the resources that they need. And it's just a spiral to the bottom.
Yeah.
You know, the more we destroy the quality of life, the fewer people want to live here. And those people leave, and that lowers the tax base. And then because the tax base is lower, we cut services even further. And it is literally a race to the bottom. And we see it happening before our eyes, and we can stop it.
Yeah, I find it interesting that the legislators who are representing these areas of our state that are typically voted Republican continue to vote for people that are harming their communities directly. When I think about SB 1, the bill that came down to essentially slash funding at the municipal level in the name of property tax savings, which really didn't amount to as much, because you even hear the folks going, where's the break, bro? Where you didn't give me what I asked for. And now, like, they went, remember when they were going on this whole rant about defund the police? Didn't they just do that with SB 1?
So SB 1 is just typical of modern republicanism. It's not tax relief. The average person this year, the average homeowner, the working class homeowner, gets a tax cut of less than $100. So look, $100 is $100, right? And we'd all like to have $100.
Yeah, we're not going to discount that, right? Yeah.
But look, if it means, I think if you ask most people, would you rather have $100 or a functional public school?
Right.
I think most people would say, I think I want the school. Would you rather have $100 or a reliable fire department for when your house catches on fire? I think I would rather have a fire department. So the fact is, it's not even tax relief for most people. It's tax relief for people with $1 million houses, absolutely. It is certainly tax relief for multi-million-dollar businesses. Their personal property tax deduction went from $80,000. So if you're buying equipment, if you're buying office equipment or vehicles or those kinds of things, an $80,000 state deduction, that got raised to $2 million.
Wow.
80,000 to 2 million. So we're cutting and cutting, supposedly to give people relief, which they didn't get, but ultimately not making up for that revenue anywhere.
Right.
But instead, it's a shell game where they say, well, we're just going to push that down to the municipalities, to the counties, to the townships. You guys figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's an inefficient way to run a government. It puts a burden on localities that they should not have, and it makes no sense. So here's what I would say. People do need property tax relief.
Sure.
There's no doubt about it. But property taxes haven't been raised. It's that property values have gone up.
Yeah.
And that's usually a good thing.
Typically,
right?
yeah.
It's usually a good thing. But if you are cash poor, if you are on a fixed income, if you are retired, you can't pay your property taxes directly with increased equity.
Right.
So there's real culture, there's real sticker shock, right? That what in the world, well, guess what? Your house is now worth a lot more. Well, you still got to pay those taxes. So the smarter thing to me, as I look at it, would be, let's not just have an across the board property tax cut and a percentage cut. Because look, if you have a $2, $5, $10 million house, you're probably going to be in a better position to pay property taxes than somebody who's owned their home for 50 years, who's on a fixed income and who's retired. We ought to give relief to those who are retired, those who are on a fixed income, those who have owned their house outright for more than 15 years. We can do those things to actually give relief to the people who need it while still maintaining a source of revenue that we really need.
Absolutely.
Another thing I think we could do to avoid the sticker shock, we can adjust the way we do assessments, but we can also do a rolling average. In other words, instead of going every year and saying this is what your property is worth, we can say what's it's been worth for the last 10 years. And let's do an average of that. And that's going to be what your property tax is. So that protects the homeowner from a sudden spike, a sticker shock, but it also protects the community from, a huge drop like we saw in 2008. And it just seems to make more sense to me to do an assessment along something that's rolling like that. And there are many, many other things that we can do. I would say we ought to give back local control to communities.
My goodness. I mean, the whole states' rights people don't never want the municipalities to have the same rights that they want.
Of course not. Of course not. So look, municipalities, counties ought to be able to have a say in landlord-tenant relations. They ought to have a say in how rental properties can be managed, how many rental properties. Look, one of the problems we have in this state is our legislature, whenever a problem arises, the first question that they have every time, the first question they have is, how can our friends make a buck?
Right. Sometimes it's not even their friends, Ross. Sometimes it's them. I mean, the conflict of interest with some of these legislators is just insane.
Yes. So we have gerrymandering in this state, which means that most state legislators are in 70-30 districts. Mm-hmm. They're not really worried about answering to the people. We have basically no campaign finance rules. None. They can get unlimited money from anybody they want for the most part. And then we have no ethics rules. Not only can you get unlimited campaign funds, you can get a free steak dinner every night. And a lot of them do.
Yeah, they do.
You can get Super Bowl tickets, and that's not considered a bribe. That's just considered a cost of doing business in Indiana. It needs to stop. Look, if you're a park ranger at a state forest, if somebody gives you a free sandwich, you got to fill out a form in triplicate.
Right.
If you're a state legislator, you can go to the damn Super Bowl.
Right.
And they do it. So look, absolutely, and that leads to that situation where everything is looked at is how can someone make a buck. And so we see things privatized that shouldn't be privatized.
Right.
We see state control where there should be local control. And one of those things, going back to property taxes, one of those things is we deregulate the real estate market. And so that means a multi-billion-dollar company who out of the state can use an algorithm to come into a neighborhood and buy every house there for cash.
Right. It's
not normal supply and demand. It can't be normal supply and demand when one potential purchaser is a young family and the other is BlackRock. Because BlackRock is going to win
every
time. It is not a fair playing field. It skews the market. It inflates those property values in an unnatural way, and we should stop it.
But
you
Ross,
know, and
Ross, let me ask you though. You know, you're speaking very philosophically and at a very high and detailed level. But do you think one of the things that they have wanted to do and has accomplished is that if they keep us so busy that we've got to figure out how to work two jobs to keep ends meet, that we're spending all of our time trying to figure out which school to send our kid to because you know, public schools are not as available, or we putting these ranking systems out. If they keep the people so busy that they won't notice that they getting robbed, do you think that's the goal there?
Well, look, I think ultimately the goal is they don't particularly care. Honestly,
yeah.
I don't know that it's that Machiavellian. I think it's more like, you know, I'm sure whatever happens to them happens to them. We're going to make our money. You know, we're going to answer to the utility companies, not the people who are struggling to pay their electric bills. You know, we're going to answer to the data centers, not the people whose neighborhoods are going to be destroyed by them. And one thing after the other.
Yeah.
So, look, I've said it before. You know, we have a terrible quality of life, and one of the things that I see, and I've seen it for a long time. Look, nobody likes paying taxes.
Nobody does.
I don't particularly like paying taxes. But
I
understand.
If we want a civil society and have an opportunity to take care of those that can't actually take care of themselves, or better yet, if you want your roads plowed, you got to pay for something.
So Republicans for years, you know, Reagan and before, they live in this fairy tale world where taxes are theft. Your tax money is being stolen from you and flushed down a toilet somewhere. And by the way, we're going to have all of these amenities in our community magically, but you shouldn't have to pay taxes for it because taxes are evil. And look, again, taxes should be fair.
Yes.
And nobody should be overtaxed.
No.
We have taxes in this state. You know, the lottery is a tax in this state.
Exactly.
The gas tax is a tax in this state. Sales tax is a tax in this state. These are regressive taxes. When you talk about paying a percentage, when you're talking about a working person, and look, you know, I am somebody who grew up, you know, looking for having to know exactly how much I had to spend, you know, budgeting down to the dollar and hoping that, you know, that check gets in the bank before the check that I sent to the electric company cleared. I've been that guy.
Yes, but we've all been there at some point in our lives, right?
Right. So look, nobody likes to be overtaxed, but we have to get away from this Republican mindset that taxes. I heard a guy, and I don't even remember who he was, some right-wing talking head in Indiana, ranting the other day about you know, how dare my community have a referendum for schools because I don't even have any kids. Why should I have to pay taxes for schools? It's just insane. It's sociopathic, frankly. That if you don't,
they don't see any value in the community good, and they have convinced themselves they did it all by themselves.
Yeah. So we have to, one of the things I want to do, you know, and you do it, and we all do, is to talk to people and say, look, nobody's trying to overtax you, but you have to live in reality. If we want to have public water, if we want to have a police force, if we want to have a library, if we want to have a functioning court system, I mean, you can go down the list. We all, as a community, have to chip into that. Yes. And nobody should pay more than they can bear. And we should have a tax system that is fair. Look, like I said, I've been somebody that, you know, when I go to the store, I know exactly how many dollars I have to spend. I've also been fortunate enough in my life that I can go to the store and maybe not think about that so much.
Mhm,
I still
mhm.
don't like to overpay, but I don't have to think about every dime.
Right.
And I'm in a better position to pay my fair share than I was as a young man. And we ought to have a system that recognizes, hey, listen, we don't want people to be burdened by their taxes. But if your burden is simply, I don't feel like I should have to contribute, I'm sorry, that's not a burden.
Yeah.
That's on you for being selfish and being a psychopath.
But it's almost like they forgot that the roads that they drive on have to get paved, or they forgot that the electric wires that go to their homes, or even the internet fiber that goes to their homes, even though in some instances they may be owned by a specific private company, that land has to be surveyed. You know, all the waterways have to be surveyed. Remember the plug, know before you dig, or whatever it is. I mean, it's all
right.
You know, it's all the things that go into making sure that your life that you think that you did all by yourself is comfortable. And let me flip the script real quick, Ross, because, you know, you said you're in a tough district. How are you framing this conversation with people who, you know, may or may not be interested in voting for the person that has the D behind their name?
Well, look, I think we're in a kind of a unique situation here, because a long time state senator, Greg Walker, who, by the way, is a conservative, his voting record is very, very similar to Michelle Davis's voting record in the House. He's certainly not a liberal. He's certainly, no. I wouldn't even call him a moderate, based on his voting record. But he wasn't a radical.
Right.
You know, I mean, his crime was not being a radical.
Right.
So when outside forces come in and oust a longtime legislator because he dared to stand up and say, I don't think mid-decade redistricting is fair, number one. And number two, and he would say this, and that map, which Trump tried to shove down our throats, was ultimately bad for Republicans.
It really was.
I
kept saying, and let's stop there for just a second. I kept saying, okay, let's think about this for just a minute. You're going to take a 600,000 registered voter block and divide it into four. So, okay, so you do divide it into four. That means there's 6 divided by 4 means you still got 150,000 people in one space that has to. Now, how many counties have to make up for that 150,000 people? And oh, by the way, how about if we increase voter turnout because you done pissed off people? Oh, by the way, what if you mess around and activate black voters like they did in 2008? Like the Republicans knew, like, no. Let's not make them mad because we will lose.
Yeah. Look, that's the reality. I mean, it kind of got lost, but that's the reality. Look, the people who made this map were not from here, number one. They were stupid, number two. And they used data from 2024 and tried to apply it now. And so the problem is, you hit it exactly right. Look, Indiana is one of the most gerrymandered places ever. When you're already as gerrymandered as you can be, if you try to gerrymander more, it's anti-gerrymandering,
yeah,
right? The whole idea of
your numbers,
gerrymandering, right? The whole idea of gerrymandering, we want to put as many of those Indianapolis voters in one spot. So guess what? You're going to win that one. We're giving the Democrats that one, but we're going to make sure it's only one. If you divide it up into 4, Indianapolis is so much larger than any other county population-wise.
Yes.
It's hard for people to wrap their head around, right? 600,000
registered voters, and it's almost 900,000 residents. And the second largest city in the state is Fort Wayne at 250,000. I don't even think people recognize.
It's so much larger, and you're exactly right. When I look at a map like that as a county chairman who's a number cruncher guy, I look at that and say, hey, give me 4 districts that have a big chunk of Indianapolis, and let's raise that turnout from 55 to 75. You're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the more the city grows, the greater the influence. It's you look at Georgia, right? Georgia it has Democratic senators, not because a bunch of people in Macon decided they wanted to become Democrats. It's that the city of Atlanta keeps growing.
Yes.
And the suburbs of Atlanta are basically now Atlanta. So you
Yeah.
go to a place 30 years ago, Newt Gingrich was winning in Cobb County.
Not no more.
Not no more. You
Not
know,
no more.
30 years ago, that was white flight suburbs.
Yeah.
Now it's just part of Atlanta.
The greater
And
Atlanta
so-
area. Yeah.
Yeah. And Indianapolis is the same.
And that's
on a
what's
smaller
happening in
scale.
Hamilton County. And,
Yes.
and like literally, it may not be happening in Hendricks and Hancock and Johnson as much.
But it will be.
But it will, especially in Hendricks. I think it's going to happen in Hendricks first because the Avon, Plainfield, all of those
Yep.
areas over there are starting to grow. I know in Hancock, you still got McCordsville that's growing. Johnson, the Johnson County is going to be a minute because even southern Indianapolis is a little bit more red than the rest of Indianapolis. But Hamilton County, Lord have mercy. But the more people are moving up there in Hamilton County,
Right.
the more purple it is getting.
And think about this, Dana. Why are people moving to Hamilton County? Why did they make the list of best places to live? Is it because they have the lowest taxes?
Oh, God, no.
No. It's because they have the best quality of life because they have invested in their community. And again, part of that is because you attract people with higher incomes who are going to raise your tax base. You invest that money in your community to make it a better place to live, and then more people come. In most of the state, we're doing the opposite.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
we are lowering the tax base. We're making it less attractive, and people are leaving.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
it's idiotic.
It is
And
idiotic.
it's not rocket science.
It's
we
not.
can fix it.
Yeah, and then now they're plopping these data centers down everywhere without regard to
Not
the
everywhere.
Well, well, I tell you what, and listen, anybody that's ever listened to Turn Left knows that I have given Democrat Councilman Ron Gibson the blues for him voting for a data center in my district in a
Yeah.
neighborhood where it literally is house, data center, house. Like that is just dumb, right? But they're plopping these data centers down without regard to environmental concerns, without regard to resource concerns. They are not caring, and there's no real jobs. It's going to be a few custodial jobs, a few building maintenance jobs, and maybe a couple of engineers that are in there. But that's not going to be not for the amount of investment that the state is making and saying, hey, you get a 50-year tax abatement. Oh, by the way, municipalities because of SB1, you have to raise your taxes to cover law enforcement, first responders, schools. But we're going to give these people who are moving into your communities a 50-year tax abatement.
Down in Jennings County, we would call that a boondoggle because that's what it is. Look, it goes back to what I said before. If the number one question is how is somebody going to make money, guess what? Somebody is going to make money on those data centers.
Yep.
The community be damned.
Yep.
And when I said, they're not plopping them down everywhere. They're plopping them down in poor communities. They're plopping them down in working class areas. They're plopping them down in rural areas. I don't think you're going to find a data center in San Jose, California, right? I don't think you're going to find one in Seattle.
I'm wondering if Hamilton County is gonna see one. I'm curious
Well,
about that.
I would be surprised. And the thing is, as a state of Indiana, we should have more of a concern about our own community.
Yeah.
That these guys come in from California and New York and say, we don't we need to put this in some place that doesn't matter. Oh, how about Indiana? Indiana doesn't matter. And instead of saying, well, yeah, we do matter. And,
We absolutely
we
matter.
don't want to destroy our communities with this boondoggle. We say, come on in. Of course, give us some money and we'll let you put this here. And oh, by the way, you won't have to pay any taxes and you don't have to worry about anything because we're just
Environmental
Indiana.
cleanup or none of that.
We're just Indiana, and who really cares?
They treat us like a trash can, bro.
Yeah, and our leaders welcome it because they don't care about the people. They care about the money.
Yeah.
And they care about the big money and the big donors and all of those things. I mean, who gives anyone a 50-year tax abatement?
The Republicans
What?
do.
I mean, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
They literally changed it. At first, it wasn't even that much of a tax abatement. It was like maybe a 10-year tax abatement. But the leader, I can't remember his name, but the Republican leader of the energy sector, whatever that committee is, literally went back after they passed the bill that had like a 10-year or 15-year tax abatement and went back and said, oh, we're going to make it a 50-year. And then basically threatened communities with like, if you don't approve this, you ain't getting nothing out of me at the State House. And it's like they strong arm. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. Look, you were 100% right. Look, I think data centers there are going to be data centers.
Yeah, there's going to be. And I'm not saying I don't even want a data center. Just be strategic about where you put them.
But look.
Well, I guess they are, though.
I've traveled a little bit. I could tell you, there are places in Wyoming, there are places in North Dakota that you can go 100 miles without seeing a person.
Man.
Maybe that's where a data center ought to go.
I'm not mistaken. Indianapolis is like the 15th largest city, and we have a higher population than South Dakota and or North Dakota and Montana. So like there are, and there's Badlands. They actually called it and named it Badlands. You can't actually grow anything there.
Yeah.
So why not put it in a place where humans don't actually live? And
it seems like that would make sense.
And then you all y'all people smart, y'all super smart, figure out how to generate your own energy. How about that?
Yep.
How about that?
Yeah.
Instead of putting diesel.
I think there are so many reasons, and you hit it on the head. We always hear that, and it's not just data centers. We hear this all the time when we give tax breaks to big companies to build a factory or build a warehouse. And, we're going to employ X number of people and they're going to make X number of dollars. Do we ever hold them to it?
No, never.
We give a tax abatement on a promise with no enforcement. So, I know we said we were going to employ 400 people, but we're really employing 100 people at a lot less. And instead of saying, well, the deal's off, we say, thank you, sir. May we have another?
Yes.
And then we go give the same deal to the next guy.
Gosh.
We can be so much smarter. I don't think there ought to be a tax abatement for housing in this state that doesn't include workforce housing and affordable housing. If you want to build an apartment building, a luxury apartment building, knock yourself out. You're going to make some money. If you want my tax money to help you build that, you better have 20% of those houses, those units be rent controlled. Those better be for Section 8. Those better be for workforce housing. That's just common sense. If I'm going to give you my money, I got to get something out of the deal.
I got to get something for my community out of the deal.
Yeah.
Ross, I'm going to tell you something. We got to wrap because, I know that you and I, as evident, that me and you can talk and chop it up for a long time. But I want to make sure that people know how to find you so that they can support you. And as the county party chair, if you wanted to do a shout out about the help that you're needing as far as recruiting people to be volunteers, let's wrap this up and talk about, how people can find you and what events you have coming up so that people can get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, look, if you're somebody out there who doesn't like the fact that Donald Trump came in and decided an election, there's an alternative to Donald Trump's
Yes,
chosen
sir.
candidate. Absolutely. So, our website is voterossthomas.com. You can go there. You can find us. You can certainly find our Act Blue connection there. You can donate to us through Act Blue. We could always use support. Every candidate can use support. If you are in Johnson or Bartholomew County, or you're in the surrounding areas and you want to help a campaign, we always need volunteers. Look, I'm going to be knocking on a lot of doors. A lot of doors. And the more people that we have who can volunteer to hit 10, 12 doors, or be a regular volunteer and canvass a lot. But even if you only want to hit your neighborhood,
Right.
that helps.
Yes, it
You know,
does.
even if you only want to go down your own street, please
Yes.
do.
Yes.
There's nothing better than looking people in the eye and asking them for their vote, or telling them, I support this guy, you should too. So if you can volunteer for us as a canvasser, as a phone banker, as an envelope stuffer, contact us. Go to voterossthomas.com, find out how to get involved. If you're in Bartholomew County, look, we have a lot of great candidates down here on our ballot, and get involved in the local party. Show up. We have a party meeting every month.
Okay.
The
I've been to a
second
few of
Thursday.
them.
Yes, you have. The second Thursday of every month, at our headquarters. And show up, get involved. What can I do? Get involved. Pick a local candidate to help. Cindy Worth or Brad Meyer are both
CD6 and CD9. I mean,
I got both.
I'm sorry, not CD6. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
CD6 and CD9.
Yeah.
Yep.
My county split, so I got CD6 and CD9. So if
Okay.
you want to support those folks, come here and help them. But look, I would tell you, I'm pretty straight about things. This is a winnable race.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that if it wasn't. I don't like to
Well,
look
you
stupid.
actually
but
went to school on an academic scholarship, so I'm going to lean in on your brain power.
It's a winnable race. It really is. If you look at the changing demographics here, if you look at the candidate that I'm running against, if you look at how she got to be the candidate and all of the dynamics that go into that, this is a winnable race, and we're excited about it. So anybody who wants to know more, you can find us on social media. You can find us at our website. Talk to me. If you want to yell at me, yell at me. If you want to ask me questions,
don't do that.
ask me
We're not
questions.
doing that.
That's okay.
No,
I
we're
can
not
take
doing
it.
that. We're going to be respectful around here. Ross, thank you so much for taking the time out to talk to me here on Turn Left. You're one of my favorite people. You're one of the hardest working people out here, because you're always encouraging folks to get involved, and there's different ways to get involved. And you're also always hyping up your fellow Democrats who are on the ballot. So thank you so much for joining me today.
I really appreciate it, Dana. I look forward to seeing you again.
All right. All right. Y'all, listen. Click the donate link. It's right there. You ain't even got to look for it. It's right there. It's Ross's Act Blue link. But here's what I'm going to make another ask. He made a fundraising ask, but I'm going to make another one for him. Consider becoming a recurring donor, right? You may not be able to give him big dollars today, but can you sign up to be a $25, $10 a month recurring donor between now and the election? If we can get 10 people to become $10 recurring donors on a monthly basis, that will help his campaign communicate, get the information out, touch as many voters as he possibly can. There's a reason why you fundraise. The fundraising is so that we can touch our voters. All right, Indiana's own Dana Black. I will holler at you next time. Peace. Turn Left is the property of Black Pearl IT Solutions, executive producer, Indiana's own Dana Black. Music by Dorian and 22 from Pixabay.